Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thanks for getting on our call this morning and this workshop. I'm Krista Ross, CEO at the Fredericton Chamber, and we are happy to be putting on a series of workshops and webinars and educational opportunities for our members, and really hopeful that they are helpful to those of you who can participate, and we'll plan to continue doing these virtual sessions. It's not quite the same as being in person, but that being said, people are finding them very helpful, I think, and also most of the sessions we're recording and sharing again afterwards to those who can't participate. So today we're just thrilled to have Simplicity Designs hosting us. We have Matt Sims and his team on board to help us. And today we're going to be talking about what is your business's plan to survive COVID-19. Basically, whatever plan you may have had in the past is probably not valid anymore. I know for us at the Chamber, our big events that we had planned for this spring that's changed, and a lot of things that we planned have been changed. So we need to think about, as businesses, what's happening with our revenue, what's happening with our cash flow, what's happening with our teams. And from there, we need to build a new plan, a plan that will work in the current economy and the current situation. So today, Matt Sims is going to teach us how to do that. The team from Simplicity has done a lot of work with the Fredericton Chamber and with many of our members, and we've just found the work that they do to be very valuable, very helpful, and very much targeted to the type of small businesses and small not-for-profits, and small, medium, and large. But a lot of our smaller members are just finding some of the work that Matt and his team are doing right now to be really helpful for moving forward. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Matt, and we're going to have about a 30-minute presentation followed by about the same amount of time for Q&A at the end. So Matt, over to you.
Thanks, Krista. Okay, folks, as we get going on this, we're navigating new mediums to communicate, or at least to interact. So just a few house rules. I hate starting this way, but it's important. Put the questions in the Q&A. There's a little field up there. Put your comments, any helpful links, anything you want to contribute down in the commentary. And there's 19 participants, attendees here, so that if you want to speak, happy to speak candidly and openly at the end of this 30-minute session. So if it's your first time joining us in any meaningful way, let us know on the base here. But just a quick introduction for those who don't know Simplicity. Simplicity lives in the world of helping companies out of crisis. That's what we've done for the last decade, but even before that, the people involved in the organization have helped most organizations get out of crisis. And then we get the rare opportunity with about 15 to 25% of our work to help companies scale. And so, crisis is not new, but anybody who tells you they have a pandemic or a playbook for a pandemic, nobody has that playbook. But what we have for you is a series of models that the best are using to make decisions. And the best you can hope for in an environment like this, when both the business is in crisis and the outside is in crisis, is to have a set of good questions to ask yourself again and again. The first thing I start every one of my talks with is this: safety first. If you're on this call, you are most likely a business owner or a business leader, which means this: you have a much higher appetite for risk than most. And so I don't want you deciding what risk you're willing to take. What I want you to do is think about the most vulnerable person in your family that you care the most about. What advice would you give them? Take that advice. That's the first mental model that we need to get our head around. And that took me a long time. I have a fairly high risk tolerance. That's not what I shouldn't be the one making decisions for me during this. So folks, think about it. It's really important that we not spread this, because it moves quick. It sticks on surfaces for 4 or 5 days. It can travel a couple rows, a couple aisles, according to a Scandinavian study. It is a fairly contagious virus. So folks, I always start with where we are in the world, okay? And this is just shocking to me. Little more than a week ago, the total cases were 11,000 and there were 200 deaths. I mean, this is Canada. Right now we're at 27,903. Folks, we did a fairly good job in New Brunswick of flattening the curve over Easter weekend. Very few new confirmed cases, but flattening the curve is critical. It's the strangest thing in a pandemic. You're looking to flatten the curve, and if you succeed, it looks like we've overreacted. But if you don't, we're in trouble. And what are we doing when we flatten the curve? I think this is important as a business owner or a leader to get your head around. What we're doing is we're taking care of three constraints. And these three constraints are here: minutes of skills, ICU beds, and ventilators. We don't want to overwhelm the healthcare system. Now, why am I spending time on constraints of the pandemic when I'm talking about your business? And here's why. In your business, you have a couple of levers, a couple of constraints. What are they? I need to know them in the right order. I absolutely have to know them. So a business is about understanding your constraints. These are the constraints in the healthcare system. Now, folks, when it comes to the pandemic, we got a vaccine trialed in 63 days, world record. Awesome. But it's the first and fastest step in what's almost certainly going to be 16 months until we have one, if we're lucky. And that's not me, that's Bill Gates. And then many more months until we get it out to people. So no matter where I read about this, no matter where you see this happening in the world, what we're going to go through, it doesn't matter whether it's London, it doesn't matter whether it's Hong Kong, it doesn't matter whether it's New York. We're going to go through several cycles of tightening and easing physical distancing protocols. You can see the examples around the world. We didn't look at them when it was spreading in China, but now we should probably look at them. You saw Hong Kong come back online, and then they had to clamp it down. Singapore did a great job of managing this, came back online, had to clamp it down. So what you can rely on is in the pre-vaccine era, which will be the next 16 to 24 months, we are going to go through several cycles of this. We need to be prepared for it. So what's the economic outlook then? So if the world has a virus that is highly contagious, can spread in crazy ways and sit on surfaces, and we're going to go through several periods of tightening and easing of protocols, what's that mean for business? Any business owner that's hunkered down waiting for this to pass is going to be dead in the water by the time they get a chance to get moving. That's the reality of where it is. So let's take a look at the economic outlook. A lot of people have said this is a lot more like 9/11 than 2008. That was the beginning. Okay. We said right from the beginning, this is not like 9/11 because 9/11 happened in September. It didn't take out a summer, and it didn't take out hospitality, tourism, restaurants. Even in our game, Simplicity Designs, 75% of our revenue falls vast majority of our revenue, I think it's about 50% of our revenue, normally falls in 4 months. And those 4 months, March, April, May, June. 2 days into the pandemic, we had lost 75% of our revenue. So you can just imagine what kind of impact that had on us, never mind the impact it's going to have on hospitality, tourism, restaurants. You're seeing it, right? I mean, the CEO from Marriott came online, and if you haven't seen that 4-minute video, it is a masterclass in how to just be authentic and transparent and real. And basically said, we've never in the 100 years of our company had a hit like this. Okay, so there's a seasonal hit, but then there was a lot of people who said, hopefully this is an 8 to 12 week and we'll get going again. Everybody who's talking about it now goes, I may have said that 5 weeks ago. I now know that's not the case. The IMF is not prone to hyperbole, and this is what they said on Easter weekend. This is a crisis like no other. It is way worse than the global financial crisis of 2008, 2009. The Brookings Institute has said this: supply chains are completely ravaged. We are experiencing a financial crisis that we are just beginning to understand. The Conference Board of Canada, 1 million jobs lost in March, more will be lost in April. 490,000 jobs are in small business, small and micro business. Folks, this is killing small and micro business. And the reason why that top one's put up there, and we'll flip the order next time so I don't screw it up when I say it. Look at that. 426,500 jobs were lost in the entirety of 2008, 2009. So if anybody remembers being in business 2008 to 2009, you just suffered more than that in 1 month. So this is the kind of shock that's happening to the economic system. I need to pull you way out. If anybody here is familiar with doing a SWOT exercise, you probably sat there and going, yeah, my strength is this and my weakness is this. Okay, that's fine. It's not the best use of your time. Go to the opportunities and threats. Get familiar with Pestle and Porter's 5 forces. We will send you an email out, but Pestle is what are the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental challenges. Porter's 5 forces looks at your market because the macro numbers are terrifying. Consumer, they have never, ever seen consumer confidence levels this low. Now, of course, not surprisingly, people are scared to leave their house, and rightfully so. This Toronto Star article was one that started to put it in perspective, which really was fascinating for me to read from an academic lens and terrifying from a business owner lens. The service-driven economy is being hit first in this, which is the first time we've ever had that in a recession. This is the first she-cession, which by that we mean that this is putting an undue burden on women, both in the job force and outside of the job force. So pay attention to that, folks. And this is lower for longer. We were already slowing down with relatively little growth. They creatively called it sloth. But regardless of how you look at it, we were already slowing down as economy, and then we hit this. So I need for you to understand the virus and the economic outside world before we get to our business, because I got to understand what to do with it, right? McKinsey and Company have put this together, and they've advised all business owners, and this is exactly what we're doing with our clients. Folks, you cannot guess the timing, but you can plan for scenarios. You can plan for scenarios. Every company is going to go through the hockey stick. They're going to have to manage it on the way down and look for the way up. Now, the difference is in every other recession that's been followed by a bear market and a return, it's been a relatively straight line. In this case, when we're going to have tightening and loosening of physical distancing protocols, that recovery is going to look a lot more like the Rocky Mountains. And that's what you're seeing in that second scenario. You're seeing that jagged line go up. The links are all here, folks. There's not much reading here. There's probably about an hour and a half of reading total. I hope that you take the opportunity when we send you out this presentation to go through this, because there's a lot of stuff for you to understand in terms of the pandemic, in terms of the economy, because once I get my head around that, I can start to think about my own business. Here are some initial conclusions from us at Simplicity. We first have to find a way to survive the worst of the pandemic. This is all about what access to funding do I have? What's the best? How do I just get to stability in some way? Then I'm going to have to learn to transition into the low-touch economy, which is that pre-vaccine era. How am I going to live in that era? How am I going to make money? How am I going to put my, I mean, Krista was one of the first people who said to me in just a wonderful way, you know, we're all going to have to start making revenue again here at some point. And she's 100% right. How are we going to do that? I mean, I can sit here and talk to you all day. That's lovely. And you can come on here for free and use your time and we can have a nice little chat. But how are we going to grow each other's business? When's that going to start? Right? And that's what people have to get their head around in the low touch economy. How are you going to conduct business when you have a virus that can spread? When every interaction could mean the spread of the virus? How are you going to do that? Right? This is a low touch economy with safety premium. Then we're going to navigate into the next normal, which is navigating post-vaccine, but we're talking 16 to 24 months. That means that customer buying habits are going to completely change, right? It takes 66 days to form a new habit. Think about all the new buying habits that are going to get formed, and they're going to get formed in your industry. So again, if you're hunkering down, you're going to be in trouble in this. There will be first movers, there will be fast followers, and then there will be the chasers. How are you understanding your customer, right? And I always put this in front of organizations because as you transition to the low touch economy, as you transition to it, I need you to keep these models in mind. Safety, liquidity, creativity. And what do I mean by that? Is it safe for your customers and your colleagues? Does it bring you enough cash in the right amount of time? Liquidity. Creativity. Have you thought about all the sides? Have you thought about everything that you could do? And folks, we're not just a set of yackers helping other people do their work. Okay, we have a group, we have a small business, we employ right now 27 people at Simplicity. We also have a small equity company. So we put our money where our mouth is. And one of those companies is United Sign and Trimline. And let me just give you a little story on them. We have now been contracted by the government of New Brunswick to supply them with 10,000 shields. I had no idea 3.5 weeks ago that we even had the equipment to do this. But this is all going to be an iterative exercise where you're going, what is the customers, who are the customers you have? What problem could you solve for them? What capability do you have internally? What can you do in that environment? And I'll tell you this story because it's a fun one. And I think it's one that probably will resonate with small and micro business owners. Folks, 18 hardworking individuals. Some have been with the company for over 20 years when we bought the company in early January. Pandemic hits on Monday. We take an account of how much work we have, a forecast of how much work we have. Okay, we've got 5 weeks of work. Let's get going. 2 days later, we got 2 weeks of work. No work anywhere. No one's buying signs. No one's wrapping their vehicle. Everything's done. Just total lockdown. We went from basically what looked like 6 months of relatively full work. We were just starting to hit our run rate as a team. It was going really well to no work. And we had to lay off 14 people. I have never had a harder day as a business owner than the Sunday. The Monday was the 15th. That following Sunday, I got 1 hour of sleep. On the Sunday night, I had to talk to a number, and on the Monday, we had to lay off some at Simplicity, and we had to lay off most of the team at United. But we found a way to bring 5 of them back. Are we making money off those shields? Not really. But is it our first step back into what's going to be a business that deals in safety and safety signage and helping nudge new behaviors? Yes. And folks, I'm telling you this because we used what I'm giving you here today to do this. Right? This is not some fake set of models that might help you. It works if you just go through the questions. If you can separate the signal from the noise, this works. Okay, so let's talk about leading through chaos. How do you lead when both your business and the outside world is in crisis? How do you do that? Okay, every business is going to go through the hockey stick. You need to get familiar with it. What's the next 8 to 12 weeks going to look like through the worst of this? And as long as we flatten the curve, we will be out the other side of it, but we will go through that 24-month period of tightening and loosening of physical distancing protocols. That means, are you managing on the way down, and are you ready for it to come back up, right? In all of this, I'm going to ask you not to waste this crisis. Folks, if you didn't like your business before, don't save it. That may be a harsh statement, but it's a true statement. If you didn't like your business before, don't rebuild it. This is a natural reset point. Don't waste a crisis, your patient's or your own. So this is where we ask everybody to get grounded. Get grounded. Only 9% of businesses came out of the last recession thriving. And at the same time, these businesses came out in what, it depends what you read, the connected economy, the sharing economy, whatever it happens to be. Uber, Airbnb, Slack, Pinterest, WhatsApp, Square, Venmo, hundreds of other very successful businesses were born in the crucible of the last recession. You got the same opportunity. A lot of people misquote Darwin. They misquote Darwin as saying survival of the fittest. He did not mean that. He meant survival of the most adaptable, and he's 100% right. It's rarely the smartest or the strongest that survive. It's the one most adaptable to change. Change is always happening, but in these moments, it happens a lot faster. Here's the overview of how you get grounded. You get grounded with looking at why. Then you get grounded at doing 3 forecasts, a forecast of customer, cash, and constraints. You then need to do a plan around what you're going to cut, what you're going to control, and what you're going to continuously improve. And then you got to get to executing that plan hour by hour, day by day, week by week. Okay, there's an intensity to managing in wartime that does not really work well in peacetime, and peacetime managing does not work well in wartime. If you are a perfectionist, you are going to have an extremely hard time in this environment, because this is about acting and learning, not about thinking it all the way through and then acting. Right? This is the change you're going to have to make. But before I do any of that, I want you to start with why. And you'd be well suited to go back and well served to go back and watch Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. Why do you exist? Why? And then, you know, it's a very, very good video, but it didn't help me build it out. So then I went to Jim Collins, Good to Great, classic book. What do the high performing organizations do to outperform the market? And that's where you land on the hedgehog concept, which is this. Why do you exist? What are you the best in the world? What's your financial model? And I can tell you that on the Sunday, the 14th, I believe, of March, although all the days just seem like the same day. I don't know if you're having that problem too. But on the Sunday, when we realized how bad this was going to be, I stared at ours. And I said, okay, why do we exist? Make the world a better place, one organization at a time, focused in Atlantic Canada. Okay, what are we the best in the world at? I would put our team up against anybody in the world in terms of helping companies out of crisis and scaling organizations. That's what I believe we're the best in the world at. So making this region better and helping companies out of crisis is what we can offer to the market right now. What's the economic driver? Well, we're going to lose a lot of work. Okay, what do we need to stay solvent through this? Right? That's what I had to get my head around. That's what we had to get our head around as an organization. And when we did that, we went, and the first day we worked on our 17 customers, and we said, what of those 17 customers, what are they going to feel? And we went through and we worked through each one of the customers. Because folks, when you feel overwhelmed, move the finish line. Move it closer. I know that from running the 2 marathons I've run. When you get to mile 16, thinking about running another 10.2 miles is unfathomable. But getting to the next water station is fine. So we brought it way back with all of our team, and we went and looked at our 17 clients. And we went through that, and we found out how to help them. And then we realized we weren't going to be able to do that quick enough for all 400. And so we said, you know what? Let's remove the paywall to our first level of service, and let's just start broadcasting. And by Wednesday, we had started these out of crisis seminars, and we do 4 a week. We do this introductory out of crisis, and then we help people with the forecast, then we help people with the plan, then we help people with the communication. And no, we're not taking $1 for that right now, because small business is in complete crisis. There is a article written in the Globe and Mail that said small business is too big to fail. The subtext should be, and it's too complex to save. How the heck do you save it? Because it's industry agnostic, it's everywhere. It's going to take every single leader to get their head around what they need to do for their business. Okay, let's walk through. Now that you understand why, there are 3 distinct things you need to do to step back. The forecast of customer cash and constraints. The plan of what you're going to cut, what you're going to control, and what you're going to continuously improve. And the third part is, how do you execute it? Now that I know my forecast, now that I know my plan, how do I execute that? So I'm going to go through this in rapid speed because it's more important we get to your questions. But here's the thing. Later today, I'm going at 1 p.m. today on Simplicity site. You can sign up for a webinar where I go in depth on the forecast. That's correct. Tomorrow, we're going to go in depth on the plan, and Friday, we'll go in depth on the execution. So there'll be 1 hour on each one of those. There's going to be 2 minutes on each one of those in this presentation. So here's the forecast. I got a forecast for customers. That's a lot of writing. Forecast for customers that says this: next 8 weeks, who's still buying from me and what are they buying? Next 12 months, who's likely to buy from me? And you're going, Matt, how can you do a forecast when you don't know what's going on? Well, you got it, because you got to get it. What's a forecast anyway? It's your best guess. It's your best guess of what your business looks like. Then when I move past the customers, I go to cash. Folks, cash now becomes my customers, and how much I'm going to make feeds into my cash. What's cash? Cash is dead easy. How much money do I have in the bank? How much access to credit? What's my burn rate? How much am I spending every week? And how much is coming in? This is what scares me. 84% of business owners have a basic or less understanding of their financials. And the one thing you need to be better than anybody else in the world at right now, or at least competent in, is cash accounting. And I got to tell you, I would rather jump in a tub full of scissors than be a cash accountant. Okay, it's terrible. There's people who enjoy that, and I'm glad you're there because God, we need you. But as a business owner, you need to understand it. So when I look at this, you got to know your cash situation because that's your runway. That's your run rate. That's your runway. Okay. The next one, and the one that's always forgotten in the forecast, is constraints. It's always forgotten. And constraints, folks, you can't make a decision until you know how many people are buying from you, how much cash you have, and then where are my single points of failure? Where are my single points of failure? And I want you to think of two things in particular. Supply chain. We had one organization that went immediately to tight controls and stopped ordering inventory because they were worried about their cash position. Now they got all kinds of customers and their inventory coming from China and the US, can't get it. They've lost millions of dollars of potential sales because they didn't forecast for constraints. For some reason, they thought supply chains would continue. Now, here's what we know about supply chains. Folks, 70% of the world's goods that go through the air go on commercial airliners. They're in complete disarray right now. The only reason that we ended up making these shields is because you can't get them from China right now because they can't get them on planes or boats. So folks, where's your supply chain? What's your single point of failure? If you don't have goods and you don't make products and you're in the service game, there's another really important single point of failure. Skills. What skills are you going to need? Now you're going to see that there are a couple people online with us at Simplicity. Zach's there, Sarah's there. Folks, when we first started this thing on that Wednesday, we had one person who even knew what Zoom was. We now have 13, arguably 14, who are trained and can help support one of these webinars. We had to reskill. We had a single point of failure, right? Where are your single points of failure when it comes to skills? Now, I spend a little bit more time on that because the constraints, everybody forgets. People go to the cash, but they forget to look at their constraints, and then they end up cutting their nose off to spite their face. Okay, now we head to the plan. And this means I've got my forecast of customers, cash, and constraints. I now need to get to the plan of action to keep the bloody thing surviving and stabilized. So that means, what am I going to cut? What am I going to control? And the third lever, what am I going to continuously improve? So I'm going to put the cut up here for a second. Folks, I already told you about the hardest day I had as a business owner in a decade, right? And we had to cut people. We had no choice. Here's the one thing I'm going to tell you. Your business needs to survive on the other side of this, or you're of no use to people. So how does the business survive? And the other thing I'm going to tell you, give you an example of two companies. Both companies have 20 people. Okay? One company cuts 2 people a week for 5 weeks, and they end up with 10 people. Another company cuts 12 people on week 1, and 5 weeks later over the course hires 2 back. They both have 10. Which company has the higher morale? Folks, morale is a fickle thing, but if you do a death by 1,000 cuts, what you're telling your company is, I don't really know. I don't really know. I'm holding on. I'm holding on. Watch out. Watch out for that. Okay? So what cuts do you need to make? And the other cuts, folks, I say this in the longer version of this. I looked with our CFO. We looked at all of our fixed expenses line by line. This was on Tuesday, the 17th. We looked line by line, every single one of them. And we found a little bit of money. Then my aunt, who's our bookkeeper, has been with us for 8 years, went through it, 7 years, 8 years, went through it. And she knows where all the dead bodies are. And she just basically went through it and said, no, here's a whole bunch more. And we found $30,000 annualized to cut out. Every organization has a lot of money. Okay, cut, control, continuously improve. Control is, what am I going to put tight controls around? Right? What am I going to, folks, our IT spend has gone up through this because we've had to buy a professional Zoom account. I'm staring at a very professional looking webcam right now. I've got the tiny one on my computer over here, but this one is, this is the Mac Daddy of webcams. I need that because I'm broadcasting constantly, right? So we're still spending money, but we've got tight controls around the money. The other thing we have tight controls around, what are the core metrics in your company that matter? For us, pretty simple. We start every day and end every day with this. Hey, what happened that was awesome today? Okay, that's to connect people to our vision. Then we end up with just the core metrics, dollars in the bank and run rate. This is with all 27 people, dollars, days, webinar attendees, because the 24 of you are going to get an email from us. I hope that 5 of you want to do more things, right? Webinar attendees, sales. Who did we convert? Are we back there, right? Days. What days with our clients? It's only 5 or 6 metrics that really matter. Then we go down and we are starting to learn about each other again. On the HR function, we're learning about each other. We've done the personality tests, but we're bringing them out and we're doing 2 a morning so that everybody can start to learn what it's going to be like to work with each other in the new normal. And then beyond that, how are we going to lead this? How are we going to improve it? Which brings me to the continuously improve lever. Folks, cut and control is playing defense. The continuously improve is playing offense. Where can you improve? Where can you unlock value? This is the one that the high-performing organizations grab a hold of right now. Toyota in 2008. Every other automaker took their night shift off and fired them, cut them, laid them off. Toyota brought them in and said, we're going to put you on improvement work. Now, it helps that Toyota had a bucket of cash. Small and micro businesses don't normally have cash, but they do have time right now. And with this 75% wage subsidy, you have what is an unprecedented opportunity to invest in improving your business to get it ready for the low-touch economy. An unprecedented opportunity to bring people in to work on your business if you can get yourself organized. What levers are going to unlock the most value for you? Folks, after getting financial stability, everybody worth their salt who's talking online is saying the second thing, content is king. Folks, I didn't understand marketers for most of my professional career. I'm starting to really understand them right now. PR and marketers, holy geez, are they ever important right now? Because you got to cut through that noise. Okay, the final bit, this is just a whole bunch of stuff to help guide you, some of that. If I never see you again or you never see me again, these are a bunch of things to help you get your head around it. The final step is to sequence that list of cut, control, continuously improve, which leads me to execution. Because listen, professionals talk about strategy. Rather, amateurs talk about strategy. Professionals talk about logistics. That's an old military axiom. And what that means is that professionals understand that strategy is not started until it's executed. It's not real until it's executed. So how do we get to execution? Cadence, communication, and colleagues. Very, very quickly on this because we don't have much time and I want to get to your questions. The secret to execution is this. Read any crisis management in the world. Read any of them. And this is what they're going to tell you. Increase the cadence of your meetings. That means if you used to have a meeting once a month, have it once a week. If you used to have it once a week, have it once a day. If you used to have it once a day, have it 2 to 4 times a day. Folks, we used to do our 12-month forecast once a month. That made sense. Things didn't move that quick. I can tell you what's happening now. Once a week, we have to do the 12-month forecast because it has changed dramatically. And I'll tell you, we couldn't have predicted it. Customers we thought we would be digging in with have decided to go another path, and customers that we thought were kind of on the fringe said, okay, let's go. This brings out different things in different people, folks. Okay? So execution is this. Execution is this. Getting the right information in front of the right people so they know what the priority is so they can execute. And I got to tell you, in a time like this, nothing gives people more of a sense of purpose than being able to clearly connect what they're doing today to what we're doing as an organization. Nothing. Nothing can, folks, there's nothing secure about this world right now. At least at work, we can give them a little bit of hope that we're doing something and we're making a move and we're actually trying to figure this out, right? Okay, that's enough of the pleas from me. I'll leave with this. Folks, we're going to need a lot of compassion for one another. All of us are going to hit a wall at some point in this thing. It's a marathon. We've got 2 in the organization right now that are taking a rest day. Folks, Romeo Dallaire, when he talks about post-traumatic stress disorder. And for those who don't know Romeo Dallaire, he was the Canadian general in Rwanda when the genocide happened, said this: listen, when it comes to crisis, when it comes to facing these things, everybody has a certain reservoir. He called it a bag of peanuts. And in that bag of peanuts, every time you see something, you take one out. Everybody's got a bag. Some have a larger amount in there, but we're all going to hit a wall at some point. Folks, we need compassion more than ever. We need empathy more than ever. And, you know, if you have that empathy and then you can connect the day in and day out, and you can start to make it real, and you can align people around where we're headed, it's amazing what you can accomplish. How did we go at United from not even knowing we had the bloody equipment to make shields to a 10,000 unit contract with the government of New Brunswick and many more thousands sold in 2.5 weeks? How do you do that? You do that by using this and iterative design and going, okay, where the hell is it? You don't do it by sitting back and going, wonder what I should do here. You got to act your way into thinking different. Act your way into thinking different. Folks, after physiological and safety rungs on Maslow hierarchy of needs, we're all going to need community. That's that third rung. Where's your community? Where's your community? How are you building it with your customers? How are you doing that right now? Okay, folks, it's 9:38. You will have this presentation. You can reach me at info@simplicity.ca. All the links that I talked about are sitting there. You can join us later today for a forecasting exercise on customer cash and constraints. On Thursday, the 16th, we are going to walk through, and Krista, you've been on a few of these. We're going to walk through the scenarios for different financial situations and go, what will we do in this situation? So we're going to walk through for solopreneur. We're going to walk through for that's micro business, small business. We're going to walk through for a bit of larger business. We're going to walk through that and go, all this mess, everything's available. What do we do? Thursday and Friday, again. So today's the forecast, tomorrow's the plan, execute. Simplicity.ca. Couldn't be easier to sign up if you want to join us. It's completely free. Folks, we need as many of us as possible to make it to the other side. Right? And I can't put too much urgency on it. Folks, in a past life when it's been peacetime, we've been accused of, accused is maybe a too harsh a word, but we bring a certain intensity to our engagement. Some of that you've seen today. And sometimes that's exciting for people, but sometimes it's off-putting. We get it. We're on that thin edge. I get it. But in this time, I hope you're bringing whatever intensity and urgency you can to your business. Folks, the follow-up will come. If you've enjoyed this presentation, if you've taken anything away from this presentation, there are 2 commitments I would ask from you. Number 1, renew your chamber membership. I have said from the beginning, I probably should not be recorded saying this, but I will be recorded saying this. The number 1 chamber in Atlantic Canada that's gotten ahead of this on all fronts is the Fredericton Chamber. Krista was the one sending out those emails with her team, sending out the emails that helped me understand what the government was doing. I could come to rely on them instead of searching everywhere else. Folks, the chamber membership is not that much. It's certainly one thing we're not cutting. The other 2 chambers that have jumped on and done a great job since, Halifax and Moncton, have also done a great job. These business communities are important right now. They've brought me direct ROI and understanding. So I'm not cutting that. And I'm not saying that for Krista's benefit. If they hadn't done a great job, we wouldn't say anything about it. I'd just sort of quietly meander to the next thing I'm going to say. If you can find it, and if you can find your way to give a little bit, we have decided to put our philanthropic donations towards the IWK Foundation, and here's why. As children get displaced from the hospital, this is the Atlantic Canadian Hospital for the Vulnerable Among Children. That's why. It's the Atlantic Canadian. They have most people don't know, but they have countless New Brunswickers in there. And so that's why we've decided as the one area, as an Atlantic Canadian company, that we're going to send. So if you can make a donation, that would be awesome. I would really appreciate that. Regardless of that, folks, it's a thank you to you. We'll get to the questions, but info@simplicity.ca comes straight to my inbox. Okay, straight to my inbox. So I am answering between 60 and 120 emails every night. There is no question too small, no question too big. You're not bothering me. Folks, if we can help you in some small way, I would love to be able to do that, just to know that you're thinking and moving through this. Okay, I've taken to 9:42. We could be here all day with me yakking one way. Let's get to your questions. Folks, if you can put your questions in the question period, this is where it comes alive. What's real for you? What questions do you have? This is where we get an awkward silence for just a very little small period of time while people try and find the Q&A. Any questions, folks, that you want to get through? Yeah, Roger. Okay, Roger, either put it in the question. Actually, I think I can enable you to speak. There we go. Roger, you just unmute yourself. There you go, Roger.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
Excellent.
I really appreciate your presentation. I'm the president of the Learning Disabilities Association of New Brunswick.
Amazing.
And I guess my question is, do you think we're going through some sort of grieving process right now of a lifestyle that we will no longer have? Going through phases such as, denial, anger, depression, bargaining, acceptance, the 5 known phases of grieving.
Yep.
And basically, I think you said it in so many words, we're sort of going through a reset phase right now. And in a way, looking at it in a very positive fashion, in that we need to prepare ourselves for a new order of business. So basically, I guess my question is, are we going through a grieving process right now, of a lifestyle that we will no longer have?
So listen, I'm not a person who thinks here's what the scientists are saying. We are going to see more pandemics in our lifetime. And here's what the social scientists will say about human emotions. We're going to go through those 5 stages that you talk about. So how quickly can you navigate through those 5 stages to prepare yourself so you can lead yourself first and then lead your business to the low touch economy? How quickly can you do that? Then beyond that, how quickly can you come to terms with the fact that we'll probably have another one of these? So you're going to have to get really good. Now, folks, it'll probably be, it depends on which expert you read. Somewhere between 7 and 25 years from now, we'll have another one. So we'll forget, of course, and but you don't have to in your business, right? So what lessons are you learning here? But there's no question, Roger, that every person and every organization, because what's an organization? It's a conglomerate of people, is going to go through all of those emotions you talk about. How quickly as a leader can you get to the other side and start to lead your company? And doing that means leading your people and helping them understand it as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any others, folks? Any other questions that you want to get to here? I had one on accounts receivable because it's always a niggly one. Accounts receivable. If you're having trouble collecting, nobody's expecting you to be the bank. So how do you turn around and have a Zoom call with someone and see the whites of their eyes and just go, listen, like, when's it coming? When's it coming? Like, is it coming? Can you pay a little bit? Because if you are hoarding all the cash you can and paying none of your bills right now because you're scared, you are making the problem worse. You are making the problem worse. And, we've talked to some larger companies who are going, no, we're all on net 90. I'm like, well, that's great for you. What about the small suppliers? Like, I can't wait net 90 for your bill. So I'm going to have to choose a different client to work with. Right? And this is the kind of conversation that you can have very gently. And then if they absolutely refuse, my God, are they going to pay? What are they going to show in terms of goodwill? Right? That is it. But get to the whites of the eyes. Make it human. Don't do it through memos. That's the one thing I'll say. The leader who leads through emails and memos is toast in this crisis. Toast. Absolutely toast. Any other questions, folks, on it? Again, I'll go back here to the yes. Laura, I own a service-based business where we have had to, like many, close our doors. Prior to this happening, we started a process to bring a product to market. With the economy's spending habits changing, do you feel bringing a product to market is a smart choice right now? Or should we put that project on hold? Laura, without knowing more, I can't give an exact answer, but here's what I can say that I think will be really helpful. You ran a service company. You, in order to run that, had a number of very good clients. Okay. Have you reached out to the clients to find out how they're doing? How are they making out with this? I'm not asking to sell anything to them yet. All that I want to understand is what are the problems they're now facing? And I just want to have an empathetic conversation, talk about how are you coping with this, right? I mean, anybody in the physical fitness world right now has a golden opportunity to become a very, very, very important player. That is the industry that's expected to explode, just not in the way of us all going to the gyms. So how are you connecting with your client and finding out their problem? Then if your product solves the problem that the majority of your customers are saying, put it in market. If it doesn't solve a problem that you can clearly identify when you have those conversations, and Laura, you got to have at least 20 to 40 of those conversations. Because if you have 5, you'll get to the wrong answer, right? So, you know, statistical viability, any less than 21, it's still a small sample size, but I don't make any conclusions till you get past 21, right? And then you can start to directionally understand. So I hope that answers your question, but it starts outside in with the customer and the problems they're now having in the new world. Then if your product does that, awesome. But my guess is if all of you go do that, here's what you're going to find out. There are problems that your customers are having that you can solve. And maybe it'll be very quick, like we were able to do at United, or maybe it'll be a little slower, like we're finding at Simplicity, right? How do we get to our new normal? Any other questions, folks? The one benefit of sitting in my chair is I have had the honor and the privilege of working with over 400 organizations and working deeply with about 40 on transformations of large sizes. So I've had the distinct pleasure of navigating this problem, this iterative problem of what problem are you solving for the customer? Not what service do you have? What problem are you really solving? Any others before we call this a... All right, Krista, I'll bring you back in. It doesn't seem like we have any other questions.
All right. I don't know if people can see me or not. I've turned my camera back on.
They can, yep.
Okay, great. Listen, thank you so much, Matt. That was an excellent presentation. And I think it's amazing that you're offering these out for members of the business community to help them get through this. I loved your comment about it's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of those most adaptable to change, because we are definitely living in times of change, and whoever can pivot, adapt, and look at things in a different way. It's how we see how our business can look in the future. It's going to look different, and we have to be okay with that and figure out how to move forward. You've given us some very good practical advice on how to do that, and also your upcoming sessions. Hopefully our members will jump on board of those. And again, we're excited to post this for the members that couldn't make it today. Some of them are, busy doing these things, and hopefully they'll get a chance to watch this presentation and hear your good advice and look at those steps, the why, the forecast, the plan, the execute, and then how to do those things. So thanks again, Matt. And
Thanks, Krista.
And also thanks for your generous praise and shout outs. We appreciate that. And we appreciate the shout out of suggesting people should pay their membership dues, because you're right, we're all going to have to find a way to monetize going forward, and the Chamber's no different. So we appreciate that shout out.
You've done a great job. That's an authentic, I mean, you were the voice of clarity for so many for a number of weeks before others seemed to get their ground under them. And so thank you, because it became a reliable source for me to not have to do a whole bunch of research. So thank you.
Well, it's our pleasure, and that was a team effort. Morgan, Tanya, Christine, Wendy, Brianne, and myself. And when you talked about having more regular meetings, we used to have a bi-weekly team meeting in person in our boardroom, and now we are doing a team Zoom every single day. We're definitely working more closely as a team than we ever have in a time that we are far apart from each other. So that's some good advice as well. Anyhow, folks, if you have ideas of other things you'd like to learn, other sessions that would be helpful to you, please share them with us. Tanya's working to get these sessions organized for our members. We have other ones coming up. We're back to sending out a weekly event calendar, which includes all the workshops and webinars that we're hosting. And we'll be continuing to do some virtual networking events as well. Those are a lot of fun, different but fun. And so we encourage you to share with us ideas of upcoming sessions that would be helpful to you. So again, thanks to Matt and your team. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us today, and look forward to the upcoming sessions as well. And so we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.